Hello and welcome to Southworks. My name is Milos and I work for Halecka, which is the developer of the building. Uh, a short history about this project. We are a small company, but our whole team is basically coming from much bigger developers than we are now. And when we joined Halecka, we decided to create a small and hopefully innovative company where we don't have to crawl through layers of management for some decisions. So usually we do the decisions in a small group, and we hope that at the end it's a good strategy. And Southwork is our first project in London with Middlecap, but we have experience with other projects in London. So when I will talk only about the technology part because I'm the nerd guy within the company. I can't comment on any architectural components of the building, but this is why we are here, I expect. So, and I will talk mostly about bGrid. And the reason why I want to talk about them, it's not because this is a sales pitch and they will give me some money thanks to this promotion. Absolutely not. It's because I really like the way how the system works, how it operates, what it brings, and last but not least, the team which is behind it. And the reason why I have these preferences is that I'm not originally a real estate person. I'm a technology person coming from the IT background and being in real estate for last 7 years. So when we started the project, or when we started to design the project, when we discussed the technology part, meaning the building management system, the sensor network, and basically how would we design the whole thing in order to produce a working, efficient building, I set up few requirements which I had for the sensor network which should run around the building. First of all, ideally, we'd like to have the sensor network decoupled from the BMS. Usually, BMS vendors, especially the huge ones, they also offer their own sensor network for the BMS. It makes sense, and so on and so on. But since our first goal was to be able to measure everything which is possible within the space and which makes sense, meaning to measure the standard measures like temperature and humidity, we also wanted to measure something more like the occupancy, the ambient light, number of persons, potentially the noise, basically everything which is possible so we can learn as much as we can from the building. We started to search for such a sensor, and we found out that there are some on the market which are integrated together. So we wanted to have like all-in-one sensor which can bring us as much data as we can. We wanted it to be independent of the BMS. We wanted it to be completely open in terms of data access. So we were searching for something with an API, application programming interface, which allows us in the future to basically connect any type of system to this network, either for reading the data or maybe, ideally, for sending some commands which can at the end up in the BMS and do something, which is basically what we got with bGrid. So we wanted to have the integration with the lights, which the nodes have. And I won't dig into the technical details of the nodes. I hope that guys from bGrid will be able to show you when we will go around. But we are not only able to measure the internal air quality, we can send the commands to the lights, and we can send the commands to via backnet, we can send the commands to the BMS itself, which means that the system not only gives us the information about all the environmental variables in the space and the occupancy, but also we as a tenant can also change the environment, meaning I can turn off the light or I can do whatever else with the lights, or I can change the temperature. So if you look around, there are no light switches and there are no thermostats around here, which brings us flexibility. Right now we are fitting out the second floor, And this really helps us because we don't have to deal with running the wires and having the light switches. Everything is just automated, and we believe that basically a person should not touch the building. The building should run in a way that it doesn't have to touch it. But if you want, if there's a specific reason why you want it, you will just pick up your app, and since we've got Bluetooth in the bGrid sensors, the building knows where you are. You can just turn the lights on and off or change the temperature exactly at that space where you are. And this flexibility is thanks to the network of bGrid nodes which we have around the building. So this brings us to the next point, which is the flexibility and metadata, which is kind of a cryptic bullet point. But basically, it means that if you want to set up a new space, if you want to design a new space, as we are working on at the second floor right now, to create a temperature zone, it's just connecting the nodes within that zone in the software, and in that case, we can adjust the temperature and light and everything just within that zone. So we are decoupled not only from the BMS, we are decoupled from the physical space. So if the tenant decides to change the layout in a few years or even a few months, we don't have to rewire anything. The only thing which we can change, or we should change, is that what we did, we integrated the bGrid sensors into the light fittings, so they are virtually invisible. But if you search for them, you can see that they are present directly in the light fittings. Since the density of the lights is much denser than we need for the sensor networks, not all of those lights have the sensors integrated. So what we can do is basically we can move them around the space. So if we decide that we want to have a small meeting room here, but there is no node in that actual light, we can either replace it from somewhere else or just ship a new one and put it there, and it's a question of minutes. We just raise a new ticket to bGrid and they will just include it there. So this is the virtualization of the sensory network in the building, which we absolutely like. And it's about the physical flexibility, meaning we can really move the nodes around based on the requirements of the fit out without any heavy rewiring whatsoever. It's just a software-defined thing. And I touched it when I mentioned we can just raise a ticket. Since I'm coming from the IT world, I would say, is that my expectation of a vendor support are maybe probably a bit different than what used to be a standard in the real estate world. And it basically means that any type of issue which I have, I can just open a ticket and someone will reply to me, even during the weekend. It depends on the service level. And here, I really have to say that bGrid is one of the best experiences which I had, because everything, just the software support, let's call it like that, works so smoothly that we know that if anything happens, we just open a ticket and they will solve it. The software of the whole building is being updated constantly. We are aware of that there are some changes coming and we are looking forward to them. So just to finalize the reasons why we have decided to go with bGrid was that during the PropTech boom, which was like maybe 5 years ago, before the COVID hit, there were so many companies on the market offering sensors for real estate companies, and many of them were really good, but their main issue usually was that they had no experience with the real estate itself. For people who knew that there is a gap in real estate and they wanted to fill it with their own sensory networks, but since they didn't have the asset management, facility management, and real estate industry experience, they were not able to respond to the questions which we had. And at bGrid, they have the experience in the team, so we can talk the same language. And this is exactly what we wanted. So these are the reasons why we have decided to go with bGrid. And just to show you quickly what are the ways how we can utilize the data? And I mean, I can have this talk for next 2 hours because there are so many things that I'm like, I'm data obsessed person, so I'm a strange one. But I try to keep it really quick. So first, we have a tenant app for the tenants. And since bGrid is open to any third party, we can integrate basically anything we want. They have tenant app, which, as you can see, first based on the Bluetooth, it can localize me, and I can see where I am. I can see what are the spaces around me. I can see their environmental variables. Like you see the noise, temperature. I took the screenshot like 2 days ago, probably. So these are the real data. So this is for the tenant, and you can also change the temperature. You can also change the light characteristics. I was not able to do it because I was outside of the building, so I can't turn off the lights for people who are there, and I'm not. But if you are here, you can do it. This is the engineering interface. I don't know if I call it correctly. Facility, yeah, it's a bGrid operator code, right? So this is the transparency which we absolutely like because we see the whole network. There are so many layers of information that you can turn on or off. So we have real-time information about the whole building. We can even change the variables within the building. So this is exactly what I was talking about. This slider talks to DALI network, and this slider talks directly to BMS. So, and for us, it's absolutely transparent. So it's great. So this is for the daily operations. Then, and here are the numbers. This is just for the nerds. One thing which I really like is that there are so many ways how you can look at the data, but the added value of bGrid is that they are producing these reports and they are updating them. I mean, we are not stuck with the report which is like, I don't know, it's designed, it's 2 years old. There is still something new which we can find there because there is a dedicated team which works on that. So just to give you, this is a series of screenshots which I prepared 2 days ago probably, just to show you how can we check how the building operates and how can, this is not only for us, this is also for the tenants. How can we identify potential issues and how can we check if everything runs well? So this is a screenshot of a dashboard with temperature in the building. So data coming from the sensory networks, and this is the ground floor where we are right now. As you can see, this is this space. There is no tenant yet here. This is the other side, so it's Steer, the tenant on the other side, and we can see that these are the temperatures in the lobby and in their spaces. What I can see is that this is the average temperature in the building, this is the average temperature during occupancy, and then I see, oh, maximum temperature is almost 27. What does it mean? What should we do with it? There is potentially some issue somewhere, but generally we are quite okay because we can see that the usual temperature range is within 20 and 24 degrees, which is kind of okay. So this is the ground floor. This is the same picture with the 4th floor when we've got another tenant. So based on where you are located, you can just check your space, how everything works. So, but we've got this potential issue. What's going on? Let's dig in deeper. I really like these sunburst charts. They are not readable for normal people, but for us nerds, they are. So this is the scale of temperatures in all the spaces which we are measuring. And so the further you are from the center, the higher the temperature is. So here is 30 degrees. And as you can see, there is some outlier. What's going on? Who is this? Or which place is this? If we click on it, because this is the place with the highest temperature, we find out that there is a room, which is here, is this one, called Rama, on the 4th floor, where this thing happened. Like there was some high temperature, higher than we expected, and now the power of data comes into the play. Here you can see we can correlate the occupancy of the space within the weekday and the temperature. And as you can see, absolutely normal scenario. With the occupancy, the temperature rises. It's a small space, it's a confined space. So it's logical that when you've got more people, the temperature usually rises much quicker than usual, and you need to do something. You need to adjust the HVAC. This is a normal way how we should operate. So as you can see, we've got some trends. We can see that usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, the occupancy is much higher than on Monday or even on Friday. So people don't go to work on Fridays anymore. So yeah, Rama is the space where we have potentially some issue. But the answer should not be that we have an issue with the temperature. It could be that this is a small space for 2 people, but usually there are 4 people there. We don't know that, but we can come back to the tenant and ask them, okay, guys, do you see that potentially we can do something about it? How many people attend the meetings there, and so on and so on. So Rama is the place or the meeting room where we can potentially have the issue. We can look at it also from the other side. Like we have a report here, the table which says these are the areas where during occupancy we've got really low temperature. So this could be a problem, maybe it is not. We can see that in an open office, 2.5, 16 hours, we had temperature lower than 19 degrees. This is not an issue, we are aware of that, and this is by design because the tenant wanted it like that. But look here, we have here a slider which we can move, and it will show us exactly all those spaces where the temperature was higher than some threshold. And you see the usual suspect, meeting room Rama, 16 hours was about the threshold which we wanted. So now we've got the place where we potentially have the issue, and we can either proactively engage with the tenant and ask them if they are okay with that or if there is some specific reason. And then when we solve it, we can move on. So, and this is just one thing which we can look at. It was temperature. Now we've got CO2. CO2 sensors are also in the sensory networks, not in all of them. It doesn't make sense to have them in really dense network. So we have CO2 sensors in specific spaces, like for example in meeting rooms, because when you've got a confined meeting room, the CO2 level is really important. And also we can see that, yes, there is, like usually, let's come here, CO2. We see that we had some issue potentially somewhere with maximum CO2 in some space, but generally, we are in the range between 400 and 900 ppm, which is absolutely okay. So generally the building performs okay, and there is some space where we potentially could have issues. And with using the same dashboard, we can see that there is a meeting room called Fraser 2, which has 13 hours of CO2 higher than 1500 ppm, and it's a meeting room. It's on the ground floor, and it's either this one or this one. Again, confined small meeting room. So either there's something, either the BMS or the HVAC does not react the way we want, or maybe there are more people than the space is designed for. So this is the way how we can investigate and find out the reasons. Question?
When you say that this information it's based on when it's
Yeah.
Is that based on the sense telling you that it's occupied, or is that your occupancy schedule?
It's the sensor. So since, and I think guys from bGrid will tell you much more, but the PIR sensor, the small bubble, will tell you if there's a movement in the space, and bGrid also, but it won't tell you usually how many people are there. You use different technologies for that. We didn't go for the technologies because usually they are camera based, so they basically count the heads. They are expensive, and usually people have some privacy concerns. And usually there is no reason for you to know if there are 5 people or 6 people somewhere. When you have a reason, you can just implement them. And this is great because we know that if someone wants it, we can buy such a sensor. It's not from bGrid, but there is a way how to integrate this third-party sensor into the same network. So this clever algorithm is able to estimate the number of people within the meeting room or within the space. Usually it really depends, because if there are 3 people in a space for 2 people, this is the reason why we have the issue. If we want to put a 2,000-pound sensor in such a meeting room, I'm not sure really. But yes, the data, long story short, the data is coming from the sensor. So this was a short round as I said, I could talk about this for 2 hours, but I don't want to bore you. So as you can see, we've got various ways how to look at the data. I just show you only a temperature and the CO2. We can play with the data, and bGrid also generates a tenant report, which basically presents this data in a different way. So we can share it with the tenants and show them, okay, guys, this is how your office is performing. And usually people are surprised, okay, there are no people here on Friday, so let's do something. We don't have to, we don't have to have the temperature high on Fridays, for example, or whatever else. So this is really the way how we can play with it. So just to summarize, what we really like about bGrid is that the system is absolutely transparent. We have access to any data we want. There's nothing hidden from us. I already mentioned the skilled vendor team. And what I mean by skilled is that these people understand how how the facilities should operate. So we can have the proper discussion, not about something virtual, but they can really say, okay, our experience from other buildings is that you can do it this way, this way, or this way. So that's great. Support, I already mentioned it. We know exactly what are the questions which we fired on them, and we know that they will reply. So that's absolutely okay. What you need if you want to implement something like this is you need to onboard the contractors. This was the first installation of bGrid in UK, if I'm not wrong. It's a different way how you usually do things. So you need to have your contractors on your side to trust that this is the system which they are okay with. But I hope it was not a huge issue to convince them. So what was also really interesting was that the whole installation, the physical installation, was performed during the hardest COVID restrictions. So people from bGrid were not on site. Usually, I was told they go, it makes sense, but they were not able to travel to UK. So everything was done remotely, like they were remotely mentoring the on-site guys how to implement it. So it was a really funny time because I traveled to London just to check how is it going, and I had to spend 5 days in a hotel room for the obvious reasons, which was really funny. But we managed to do it, and that was really great. So even without physical touching the space, everything started to work. So that was absolutely great. And for me, the most important part from a long-term point of view is the future-proofness of the system. So in case everything will change within the spaces, we will have new tenants, they will tear out all the fit-outs, they will change the design, we can still adjust. We can, let's say, in the future, we will decide to implement a new tenant application. It can still talk to the API which bGrid provides. So I'd say that if everything will change in the building, bGrid can still stay because they are open from all sides and there will be no reason for doing some hard changes. So that's basically the reasons why we are using bGrid, and this was my final slide. So I hope I didn't bore you to death with the numbers. But as I said, I'm always open to discuss bGrid and to tell the others that I really like them, not because I'm paid by them, but because I'm convinced that it's a really good system. So thank you very much. Oh, there is a question.
Not a bit tricky fact that you've got these integrated sensors into your licenses. If a tenant wants to come on board, actually can't license or by own licensing. Well, OpenDAP's position is to put these back. But what would you do?
That's a really good question. What we count on the fact that the design of the whole space is so good, they won't change it.
How you fit it on?
Yeah.
How does it fit between Cat A, Cat B? Because fixing on the lights,
Yeah.
I don't know who my tenants are going to be yet when I'm building.
Right. Yeah.
So are they going to have a ceiling? Are they not going to have a ceiling?
Yeah, I understand. And this is a really good topic for discussion. Like usually, where is the boundary where we should stop with implementing the technology, because you're absolutely correct. They can come and they can have a recessed ceiling and we don't like it at all, and so on and so on. Absolutely. So the short answer is that if someone wants to have a recessed ceiling at some specific spaces, we don't have to use these lights, but bGrid also offers a different type of sensors which can be put directly into the recessed ceiling. If we go to the lower ground, in the lower ground, we've got exactly the same situation. If you look at the ceiling in the lobby, it's a recessed ceiling, and we've got bGrid sensors also over there. So, long story short, will be, okay, you can get rid of these lights. We still have the nodes which are in there, and we can just, so the cabling and everything is in there. So we can just put the recessed ceiling and just put the node into the ceiling. So it's a really good question. Honestly, we haven't had this request at all, not once. So probably they are okay with what we offer, but it's possible to do it. Maybe one important thing, and then I will disappear, is that these nodes are not physically wired to, or they do not deliver the data in a physical way. They communicate with something which is called the gateway. So there is a gateway, I don't know. There is one there. So that blob over there basically reads the data from the nodes, which means that I can put new node here, or I can get rid of this node, and it will still communicate with that with that gateway and send the data to it. So there will be no hard wiring whatsoever.
So I can just buy a package basically with X number of nodes.
Yes.
And then we can either have lights, no lights, whatever it is. You buy the package.
Yeah.
I won't know until my tenants come in.
No.
What they want.
This is a very, very common discussion, of course, and I was having with someone else before we started the same conversation. That like even sometimes we have projects where our infrastructure is actually in the ceiling throughout, right? But in the core and shell, the functional requirements are much lower. So actually, we put in the full tech at once. But the contractual functionality that we deliver is segregated in two parts and two payments. Even though we put in the full up front, it's fine by us. At the end of the day, and actually for me, it's really, you can probably appreciate, really good to hear Milos talk like that, because I don't normally have you on stage and me listening, you talking about bGrid. So I'm quite pleased with that. But we actually do experience that all of our clients, at the end of the day, when the building is in operation, they want the data, they want the tools, the insights. So we're comfortable with just packaging it in. To us, that's fine. Yeah. There's one thing there that just popped to mind, and it's good to mention, because like Middlecap is of course also the owner of the building. We do sometimes have like a bare concrete core and shell. Then you get a tenant. They put in our tag. The disadvantage there as landlord is that typically, in all of our projects where that's the case, a landlord doesn't have access to the data because the system gets procured by the tenant. They have no incentive to share the data with the landlord unless they have complaints that they want to prove you by data that something's wrong. So that's I think a lost opportunity. Because some of our landlords that have the system longer, if you can prove to your investors, for example, the physical fit of your tenants in the space, the comfort they're experiencing, that reduces the risk from the fund perspective. So if you looking to refinance, that can be attractive.